In 2026, the Trump administration has reinstated and expanded the maximum pressure strategy originally implemented after the United States withdrew in 2018 from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That agreement, negotiated during the Obama administration, had placed limits on Iran's uranium enrichment and established international inspection mechanisms in exchange for sanctions relief. After the United States withdrawal, Iran gradually exceeded enrichment caps set under the agreement, reducing its nuclear breakthrough time, though Tehran maintains that its nuclear program remains peaceful and within its sovereign rights under the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty. In February 2025, the Trump administration formally restored a comprehensive sanctions directive targeting Iran's oil exports, financial networks and shipping sectors, and foreign entities engaged in significant trade with Tehran. The stated objective is to deprive Iran of its revenue that could fund the nuclear expansion and ballistic missile development and support for armed proxy groups throughout the Middle East. These sanctions have intensified economic strain inside of Iran, contributing to the inflation and the currency depreciation of unemployment pressures and broader public dissatisfaction. Despite the severity of the economic pressures, Washington has not closed the door on diplomacy. In early February of 2026, indirect negotiations resumed between the United States and Iran, mediated by Oman. The first round was held in Muscat, followed by a second round in Geneva. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was emphasized that discussions must proceed with coercion and that Iran will not negotiate under the explicitly military threat. Tehran has signaled it may consider compromises, particularly if the meaningful sanctions relief is delivered swiftly. But they insist that the uranium enrichment itself remains sovereign and non-negotiable. The United States, however, is seeking a broader agreement than the 2015's framework. The United States officials have made clear that any new deal must address not just the enrichment levels and inspections, but also Iran's ballistic missile program and the support for regional proxy forces. Groups operating in Lebanon and Iraq and Syria and Yemen remain central into the U.S. security concerns. Washington argues that without addressing delivery systems and regional influence networks, a nuclear agreement alone would leave long-term stability at risk. Alongside diplomacy, the administration has reinforced U.S. military presence in the region, as well as bringing carrier strike groups, including the United States Gerald R. Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln, which have been deployed to strengthen deterrence and to demonstrate readiness. The presence of multiple carrier groups signals that the diplomacy is preferred. Military options remain available, however, if these deployments aim to deter Iranian escalation and protect maritime routes, such as the Straits of Hormuz, and reinforce the negotiation leverage. At the same time, defense analysts note that extended deployments place logistical strains on the United States naval forces. President Trump has added rhetorical pressures by publicly stating that the regime in Iran would be the best thing that could happen to them. While not accompanied by a formal policy or intervention, such statements amplify the tensions and complicate the negotiations by reinforcing Iran's suspicions about the United States' intentions. However, inside Iran's significant unrest, as it continues, the economic hardships and the political repression and dissatisfaction with the clerical leadership have fueled the protests across major cities. International solidarity rallies have taken place in Los Angeles, as well as Munich, Sydney, Australia, and other global cities. Iranian authorities have responded with arrests and force, drawing criticism from international human rights organizations. The Trump administration has publicly condemned the cracking down and framed human rights concerns as part of its broader strategic stance toward Tehran. Regional Israel plays a central role in shaping the diplomatic environment as well. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has insisted that any agreement must dismantle Iran's nuclear infrastructure rather than merely just freezing it, and it must address the missile capabilities and the proxy activities. This position aligns with the tougher elements of U.S. policy and influence, American negotiation priorities. There are other regional powers, including the Gulf states, as well as Turkey and Egypt, which have urged sustained diplomacy to avoid the broader conflict. A military escalation could disrupt the global energy markets and destabilize already fragile regional dynamics and trigger consequences far beyond the Middle East. Within the United States, the policy remains debated. Supporters argued that sustained pressure is necessary to prevent the nuclear proliferation and protect our allies. Critics caution that the escalatory rhetoric and the extended military deployments increase the risk of unintended confrontations. However, public opinion reflects concerns both about Iran's nuclear trajectory and about the deeper military entanglements abroad. Ultimately, in 2026, the United States-Iran dynamic is defined by a dual-track strategy of intense economic and military pressures paired with a structured mediated diplomatic engagement. The outcome of the Geneva negotiations will likely determine whether coming months bring de-escalation and a revised nuclear framework or a renewed confrontation with unpredictable consequences. The trajectory of the United States and Iran's negotiations now hinges on whether pressure and diplomacy can converge into a durable agreement. President Trump's strategy seeks to channel strategic concessions while preserving the possibility of negotiated resolutions. Iran, facing economic hardship and domestic unrest, will signal limited flexibility, but resist demands. They will resist the demands. Iran will the views of infringing upon their sovereignty. Regional allies advocate the strict safeguards, while the global observers watch closely for the signs of the escalation or the breakthrough. The coming weeks may prove decisive in shaping not only bilateral relationships, but also the future stability of the Middle East. If you found this comprehensive breakdown helpful, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth geopolitical analysis. And until next time, we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.